charged $4 a thousand. The last plank roads we built, the price was up to about $85 a thousand, and then we just quit building plank roads. Now that's a bullbucker scaling a log. Some of this timber would have bark on it 12 inches thick, and some of it even thicker than 12 inches on the bark. All the falling and bucking was done on the bushel. And I don't remember exactly. I think the buckers used to get 15 cents a thousand. The fallers, I think, got 30 cents a thousand because there were two of them. Now, this guy here is an old Finn bucking a log. You can see the shirt that guy's wearing, never wear out. Those fellas fall timber like that and be snowing colder than hell, and they wouldn't have any shirt on. Their skin would be all red. I don't know how the devil they do it, but work out there all day and raining and snowing, and didn't seem to bother them any. Now, a good faller in those days, in 1936 or 7, could make about $16 a day, and a normal set would probably make about $12 a day. That's each man. Now, that's the biggest cut we ever put in, and that's nothing but sand. There's no rock in that country, whatever. You just can't find rock. That's why we use plank roads. And it was very easy road building because now that's moving a 12 by 14 yarder. You had to take the sled apart, move both runners on two trucks to move one runner, and you had to move the head block and the cross ties separate. You had to move the yarders separate. You had to take all the sled rods out, and it was quite a job to move, but you only moved about once a year. So you'd lose about a week or more moving from one landing to the other, from one section to another. Now that's 11 by 13 donkey, and now we could put that whole works on a truck without dismantling it. And we had steam up, and just kept the steam up and move it from one land to the other, but the 12 by 14, we had to take the damn sled apart. The sleds were 65 feet long, 44 inches on the small end, so they were pretty big sleds. Now that's moving to 11 by 13 there. We were moving one of those machines right after the war. We had a brand new Washington 207. One truck backing up and one going ahead. And the back truck got a little over on the shoulder, and the thing dumped right over the bank and landed upside down the bottom of the canyon. It had a steel roof on it, and it didn't even damage the tank in the back. And of course, it caved the roof in and took all the air valves off. But we had insurance on it, and for $2,500, they fixed it up, and we dragged it back up on the road, and it just took a little slab off in the front of the sled. And, the tank was in perfect shape, and they really had it tied on there, so it didn't even come off after it rolled upside down. But it was just lucky that it didn't hit a stump or something, or a log, or it would have really wrecked the machine. Now that's some more skylighting, but that old Carl Jepson was our foreman for years. And you know, in those days, the foreman or none of your crew ever called you up. I was the logging superintendent, and he worked for us about 10 years, and there was only one night that he ever called me on the telephone. He said, "We're going to have a strike in the morning." And I said, "Well, to hell with them. Let them strike if they want to. We haven't worked 40 hours this week." And so I said, "Well, tell the union to go take something at the moon." You know what I meant. That's the only time the foreman ever called me up on a telephone in 10 years' time.
Did they strike?
And no man working for us ever called me on a telephone. Now this is pulling out of a coal deck pile 2,000 feet from the landing. The reason we had to strike, Grays Harbor, 1936, everybody had to be unionized, and you couldn't log if you weren't, and you still can't log up there unless you're 100% union. So we signed a contract with the union. We could log 40 hours a week without overtime. Now this is moving a steam donkey across country. We had to move it about 6 miles because Weyerhaeuser didn't own the sections right next to us there. You had to do the chunking out with the donkey and do your falling bucket and get through the doggone brush. And my dad moved 5 donkeys cross country about 35 miles and took him 3 months. And he had to build 2 or 3 rafts to cross the rivers. And he had to have a crew ahead falling and bucking. Then he had to chunk out the right-of-way, and he had all 5 donkeys hooked together. He had to have cook tents and have a camp set up ahead and then move 1 camp ahead, and it took him 3 months to move. Now this is logging a spruce butt that measured 11 feet 11 inches on the butt. That log had, I think, 32,000 feet in it. It was 28 feet long. The second cut was 32 feet, and it had measured just exactly 100 inches on the second log. This log measured 103 inches on the first cut. I had 13,000 some odd feet in the first one. The second log had more footage than the first log, the second cut. Now that was logged after World War II. This was taken in 1947 when, after the war, we started the Harbor Logging Company, and Anderson Middleton Lumber Company owned half the company, and my brother and I owned the other half. My brother and I owned this section of timber, and before the war, we paid $21,000 for it. And we sold it to Anderson Middleton's for $150,000, and they said they wouldn't buy it unless my brother and I agreed to log it for them, and we'd go in 50-50 on the logging company. So we logged it for them. It took a year, and the company made $85,000 logging that one section. It just took a year to log it. We had to buy all new equipment. We bought 2 new Washington Yarders, 2 new triple drum loading machines. We bought a 7-cat and an 8-cat and a 3/4 Inslee shovel, all new guy lines, 2-inch sky lines and 4 drop lines, and all 6 sets of guy lines, haulbacks and main lines, all new haulback blocks, and the whole outfit cost us $200,000 to get started. Nowadays, you can't even buy a yarder for that. All of our logs were hauled into Grays Harbor. They were dumped in the water, and this was an old railroad dump. The cars used to run up on this slanted dump, and they just roll right off in the water. Now, the truck drivers drove up there, and on the level, they'd take the binders off, knock the chokes, and they'd just drive up, and the logs just roll off, and they just drive on around. It was about 35-mile truck haul, That's using the North Bend system. There's some of our plank road. In the center of that road, they had guardrails in there. You couldn't run off in the road. You could see the cross ties on there. You could put on your brakes and skid, and I never did run off in the road. And none of the trucks ever run off because the center guardrails would hold you on. But you had to have turnouts, big wide turnouts to hold at least 2 trucks with their trailers extended, because there's no other way you can get past the log truck. This is building a heel boom. Now on the landings we had cross planks, and on the main road you had end planks, but all the landings you used cross planks. Then when you wanted to switch around a tree, you had to move all your planks around the tree. So you'd go over and log on the other side until they moved all those damn planks over. This is
Too bad Herb's not there. All of those cars.
Yeah, we had a 1936 Ford truck, and we used to put that 2,000-foot skyline in there and move it from one landing to another. And I tell you, you get a load with a little ton-and-a-half truck.
What size cable was it?
We used 100% yellow thread. We tried every cable you could think of, and that's our shop. We had a carpenter shop on this end and a blacksmith shop in there, and you could keep your, that's my 36 Ford pickup. The springs went crossways on that. Now that's a picture of me in 1936. Now this is dredging out where we dumped our logs at Blue Slough, right out of Aberdeen, and all the hemlock would sink, and once a year you'd have to get a dredge in there and dredge out in front of the log dump. Now they're picking up an old hemlock log, and we never logged a hemlock unless it was about 32 or 34 inches on the stump, and then we'd long butt it about 8 or 10 feet. If you didn't, the damn log just sink when you drop it in the water. So at that time, hemlock was selling for $7 a thousand, rafted and towed to a sawmill. And you had to wallet and bucket and yard it and load it. So we just logged the big hemlock that we figured wouldn't sink, and the rest of it you just left it in the woods. And Weyerhaeuser would come out once a month. They'd scale up the timber we left in the woods, and we'd just pay them for it because it wasn't worth even hauling it in. We were ahead just paying in for the... Now you see this roll off by itself when he pulls the head. He just pulls the head and just rolls off. You didn't have to have a forklift there to get the logs off. You know, they talk about modern logging. Well, that's a damn sight simpler than they do it today. And you know, to get those logs rafted, they sorted the logs in the water. And they sorted the hemlock, the cedar, the spruce, and the cedar. And your booming and rafting and towing to the sawmill only cost you 15 cents a thousand. So there is no sorting in the wood. Now we're back building the same old fill again. You know, I loaned this moving picture to the state of Oregon to make a reproduction. They had the thing 2 years, and I had a hell of a time to get it back, and they cut it all to pieces. Now, that shows you cribbing up on each side of the fill to keep it from sloughing in. And then they cut it all to pieces and didn't put it together right. Then Tom Mill down at Robert Dollar wanted to buy it because he'd worked for Robert Dollar when they were student donkeys, and so he had it for about 2 years, and I didn't think I'd ever get it back. And when I got it back from him, none of it was spliced together. It was all cut up into chunks, and from now on I won't loan it to anybody, to hell. Now that's the old watchman at camp. He's the one that let all the buildings burn down. And that's old Leo the dog. And you know, he'd cook breakfast in the morning, and he said, You want another hot cake, and he'd keep feeding that damn, that's moving a donkey sled. And he'd keep feeding that damn dog hot cakes. And the old dog would sit there, and the dog was as fat as he was. Neither one of them could hardly move. Now this is back in 1936 or 7. You can see how that guardrail's in the middle of the road there. Now there's a water tank. We just pulled 4 trees together and tied some cross ties on there and put a water tank up there. That's just for the camp only and the watchman. There's nobody lived there, only the watchman. But we always had a water tank with plenty of water. The old watchman built a fire every morning and night in the buildings, and that's a spruce log or tree. Now, that old 7 Caterpillar's loading that with a crotch line. We'd yard in a bunch of logs like that and then get 2 or 3 trucks in there and load them out. And only had about a 3-man crew, the cat driver and 2 guys out in the woods. And that's loaded with a cat. Now here's a road coming in from camp. Of course, your roads weren't very wide, just wide enough for your trucks. That was from the cat side. There was a little upgrade right to the highway. There was about 50 feet off the main highway. Now that's between Aberdeen and Raymond, just about halfway between the 2 towns. Now this is a road, we put a spur down this bank, and they had 30% grade coming up that road there. We had 1 landing down there, and the cat had to push each truck up the hill because of 30% grade. And we didn't have a darn bit of trouble logging it. We still got around 30, 35 loads a day out of there.
What year is this?
1936 or 7. We were pushing them up to 30% grade there. You could drive up it okay with a pickup with nothing in it, but a log truck couldn't make it up. We had a steam donkey down to the bottom of that grade, then we had a skyline going out from that, and a steam donkey in the back end, 2 of them coal decking, and